I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Jonny Smith.
And this is Smith and Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and this week answer your questions.
I'm going to start this podcast by asking, if you were female and you asked in a beautician for an Evo triangle, what would you receive?
We're not starting like that.
Why not? I want to know
rude. Because you've already offended at least one of our female listeners by saying that women aren't interested in homologation specials a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I tried to...
A lady called Helen on Patreon said,
I tried to say it from my experience, from my side of things.
On that side of things.
Do you know what? I must have been texted and DM'd on that side of things. I don't know, 50 times?
Oh, I know.
Like that. A lot.
It's incredible.
A lot of times.
A chap called Paul Duckworth emailed in. I don't know if you saw this one. Said he was speculating whether the on that side of things guy writes it in emails or shortens it so that he just ends sentences with OTSOT.
What? That's not a thing, is it?
He's given an example. John will be round at 8 for the mower. OTSOT.
No, that's not a thing. I don't think it's a thing.
So we asked a couple of weeks ago or so our Patreons if they wanted to ask us anything, and
they did.
The questions have been excellent and many, to the point where I had to draw a line under it and say, please stop asking us questions, because not to be rude, it's just that we'd never get through them, and then I think that's just annoying for people to have sent one in and not have an answer. So I don't really know where to start, except that I suppose at the top would be, like, as in the first people who asked, just because that seems to be a fair way of doing it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Otherwise, I don't know how to manage this at all.
Well, we're not very good at managing this sort of thing. All I want to say is thank you to everyone that sent in questions, and we will get through them, and we might talk sense in amongst the filth and the weirdness.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's start at the top. So Peter Norrish says, what's the car you own / have owned that people offer/offered to buy from you most often?
It's a really good one, that. It's probably my Dodge. Yeah, it's probably the Dodge. Or when I had a Mark 1 Ford Granada and I didn't want to sell it, I used to get people trying to buy it. When I advertised it, I really struggled to sell it. And that was quite frustrating. I thought it'd be an easy sell, but wasn't. That one, that was pretty good.
I think mine would be my Defender.
Yeah.
Because
do you get notes on it?
People like it. No, I've never had a note on any car, as far as I can remember. Asking to buy it. No, but just people sort of say, including I was up at a car dealer up north for something else, and the bloke came out, the salesman came out and went, is this yours? And yeah. Would you would you be looking to sell it? And I was like, no. And he was like, well, I'll give you my card anyway. I've still got his card in my Defender.
Oh, that's honourable. That's honourable.
But that's the one for me. We're going to skip on because we've got so many of these to get through. Elliot Jones, what's your favourite BL brand and model? And if you had to drive one as a daily for the rest of your life, brackets unmodified, which would it be? It'd be a Rover SD1 Van Plas for me.
That's a good call. Unmodified, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, unmodified, because it's no resto mods, no go, I'll have a Dolomite Sprint, but I'll have it, fully sort of polybushed and all sorts. That's not allowed.
That's not cool. BL brand. Well, rest of my life, it's a big one. I think I would be tempted to go. Could I go with the Series 3 Jag that ended up having a coach-built estate version made?
Ooh.
That was quite awkward. The back windows were very awkward.
Didn't work, did it? But it's interesting.
Yeah, and also practical.
Steward's inquiry on whether that counts as unmodified, but I think we're going to let it pass.
Can I have that? Which I'll put up the name of it, because I've totally forgotten, or I might just.
I've gone blank on that one as well. Anyway, Elliot, I think I kind of agree with yours. I might go SD1 Vitesse, but then I'd sort of be tempted by a P6 3500 as well.
Oh my God, what am I talking about? Yeah, P6.
I bought this
Estora. The Sex Tourer. Yeah, I'd have a 3.5S Sex Tourer. because it's a stunning car, and I actually think it looks good too. So
They
yes.
do look good, yeah. Yeah, fair
I
enough.
know a guy that has 5 of them in Cornwall. I met him. I haven't met him in person, but I've been speaking to him over the last 9 months or so on social media. Young guy, lovely bloke, Sheldon, has his own YouTube channel. He has 5 of them.
Is it wise to live in a coastal region when you have old cars? Or does he not? Is he heavily inland in Cornwall?
I don't know if he's heavily inland, but all I know is that he has more of them than anyone else, and they're in various states of disrepair. But I
wonder if he knows a teacher at my school, Mr. Hurst, who had lots of Rover P6s, including an Astora.
Oh, he really had a teacher with a Sextora?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was really weird. Mr. Hurst had loads of P6s, and then one day he came into school and he'd got an all-white Volkswagen Golf Cabriolet Mark 1, obviously, because it was the 80s. And it was just like the most unexpected car for him to buy.
Was it his wife's car?
P6s, though. No, he was very much a bachelor because of the P6s, I think.
P6 bachelor.
He was famously quite smelly. Lovely man, like in many ways, a lovely man, but a bit smelly. And
I bet he
had obsessed with P6s.
I bet he had non-power steering BO. That's what it was.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah. That's not a question from a reader. It's just an assumption on my part.
Right. Next question. I think I'm going to go with. Oh God, it's hard, isn't it? BL brand and model. Bloody hell. I'm just going to go SD1 de Vitesse because it's
good call.
Solid.
Good
although
call.
The actual car probably wouldn't be.
Good call. I'll go P6 S-Tourer.
Yeah, good choice.
Okay.
Or do I want a Stag? No, I'm going to stick with the Vitesse.
Slag. No.
Slag. Jamie Crane asks, how did Smith and Sniff start working together?
Well, it was that, I think we met at Geneva Motor Show, we said, didn't we? There was a free bar from memory.
No, the first time we met was at the Goodwood Revival. I'm pretty certain of this because I was there in the hotel with my wife. We'd just arrived, and you and your wife came back from a day at the festival.
A day at the races, yes.
And you were dressed up like a sort of 1950s greaser.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
I can't remember what your wife was dressed as, but you both looked really cool.
She was wearing pedal pushers and things.
Yeah. And everybody else for the revival tends to sort of default to like, we're going to go as RAF personnel or sort of
wartime
pinstripe suits and floral dresses and big sunglasses. And there's a just sort of, it's like people are quite unoriginal. And I include myself in this when they go to that thing and do the fancy dress. And you and your wife had put effort in and looked really cool. And I remember saying to my wife, oh, look, it's that guy off the TV. Oh, shit, it's probably a bit too cool for school. So we didn't come and talk to you at first.
You flute.
And then later we got talking and found out that actually we got on very well. And our wives got on very well. And then I think the next evening, for some reason, we went to some kind of outdoor drinks place at Goodwood.
Yeah.
And you made me drink a pint of really strong cider.
Ah. Well, it's the initiation ceremony.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why I allowed your West Country ways to infiltrate that. It was not something I would order. I don't particularly like cider, and you made me drink a really strong pint of cider. And I think that's probably sort of cemented the friendship in some strange way. And then after that, I think that's the thing. And then we used to see each other around, didn't we? Just at car stuff and the Geneva show and things like that. And then we went to Pebble Beach together.
Yeah.
On a ludicrous blag.
Yes, it was. It was amazing.
And you ended up... we were staying in that really fancy hotel at Pebble Beach.
Yes.
And you just spent the whole time badgering the staff to let you borrow a golf buggy. I mean, that's pretty much all you spent your time doing.
It is, isn't it? We were surrounded by multi-million-pound cars, and all I wanted to borrow was an electric golf buggy.
And do you remember one night we got quite pissed in the hotel and then went out prowling around the grounds looking for where they kept the golf buggy?
We did, and they were really well locked away.
Really well locked. I think we even got on Google Maps and got on the aerial view, or Google Earth maybe it was then, and we're trying to zoom in on the hotel to see where the golf buggy compound was. It was like some kind of really shit Ocean's 11.
That was after like those really ornate cocktails where being America, they put I don't know, a third of a bottle of vodka on the top of each cocktail just to top it up. And you're absolutely banjaxed after 3 of them.
And then one afternoon, for some reason, we weren't looking at nice old cars. We were there for about a week. It was insane.
We were there for 5 days, I think.
It was bizarre. And one afternoon, I don't know. Well, I know where you'd been. You'd been badgering the hotel staff to borrow a golf buggy again, and I'd been at a wine tasting, and I was a bit pissed. And you came running across the hotel lobby and went, "I've got one." And we went outside, and there was they brought round a golf buggy for you to have a go in for no readily apparent reason.
No, I think I said I was doing a recce to film some TV work, and just put my best British accent on. They're like, "Oh, okay, he's obviously trustworthy, British guy." And that was that. And then we got it stuck on the sand on Pebble Beach. It wasn't that pebbly, unfortunately. Otherwise, we might not have got stuck. But anyway.
Yeah, it got completely stuck, and we panicked that we were in real trouble. And then a nice lady pulled up in a Jeep. What are they called over there? Liberty. The old Cherokees.
Liberty!
And she went, "Oh, I'll help you. I can pull you out. I've got a rope." "Oh, no, I haven't got a rope. I'll go home and get one," which was incredibly nice of her. But while we were waiting for her to go and get a rope, we were on that trip with Jaguar, weren't we? And Jaguar's head of PR and Ian Callum, their director of design, pulled up in a Jag and just stood above the beach laughing at us, which was a relief because I thought they'd be really cross.
Well, seeing as we were about an hour late to leave for that massive auction that I can't remember the name of. What's the really... It was that really... exotic car auction where everything sells for millions of dollars. That's where we were going.
Yeah.
And we were late for that.
We had to pull a golf buggy off the... And then we returned it to the hotel, pull in.
Covered in seaweed and sand.
Covered in seaweed and sand. And we basically just gave the keys to the valet and ran off.
Happy times. That was a decade ago.
It was. Next question. James Harvey, strictly limited to the cars you've actually driven. Which would you say is the best and worst car for a petrol station picnic?
Petrol station picnic? PSP. Best and worst. I would say worst for a petrol station pit. It's got to be something like a Lotus Exige because not much light gets in the cabin. Although, hang on, if you say picnic, it means you're allowed to get out because the back of the Exige is probably quite a good.
No, I think he
table.
means like when we used to make videos when we could, and we would sit in a petrol station and have a sandwich. I think that's what he's talking about. And I was going to say the Alpine A110. Not good because the interior is quite small and there's not a lot of places to put stuff.
There's no stowage. Yeah, that wouldn't be great, would it?
You want a car with loads of, ideally, a big flat centre console onto which you can rest.
Lots of plinths.
Lots of plinths.
Do you know what? A Honda E
big
would
high,
be a great
flat
one.
Dash top.
Honda E would be a really good petrol station picnic vehicle. So maybe
with an added dash of irony as well, because it has no business to be in a petrol station.
Exactly. Just so many layers to that. So I think, and I'm going to say an Ariel Atom probably isn't a great vehicle, or a Caterham. Although I do keep saying that we should do a drive together in a Morgan 3-wheeler, just because.
I saw on Autocar last week that they had a sort of quite staged spy photograph of the next generation Morgan 3-wheeler. Because they said they were going to stop making it, and I was a bit like, oh, that's a shame. But it seems like, no, it's because there's a new one coming. So maybe when the new one comes, we can ask nicely to borrow one. And then
Morgan Freewheel, does all the voiceovers.
Morgan Freewheeler, next question, Martin L. What is the largest fruit or vegetable you reckon you could get out of human arse without either the fruit or vegetable or the arse breaking? Martin, catch a grip.
That's just ridiculous.
Go away and do your own research, Martin.
Yeah, my mate Dan, who works in A&E in Bristol Royal Infirmary, he's got many stories involving doing X-rays.
Doctors always have, haven't they?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I said the other week I was reading that. I was going to say Peter Kay, and it's not Peter Kay, it's the other guy. I can't remember his name now. The Adam Kay. His
Paddy McGuinness
about being a doctor. No, I don't think Paddy McGuinness has ever been a doctor.
Okay.
I'm guessing. Next question, James Smith. I was wondering, how big do you think the Sultan of Brunei's keyring is? I reckon it's like
brilliant.
a child's hulu. Perhaps he has a bespoke, modified IKEA Billy bookcase to store them in. I think that's it. I think
That's brilliant.
a Billy bookcase with hooks screwed into the sides of each compartment into the fiberboard.
Do you know what I think? I think
Go on.
although he's exceptionally wealthy, he's also maybe really indecisive and not hugely organised. So I think he has one of those massive biscuit tins from like the 60s, which is really ornate, got lots of designs on, embossed and stuff, and they're just all crammed in. So every time he goes to the garage and he thinks, I don't know what I want to drive something, he shakes the biscuit tin and turns it upside down and then goes, that one. And the first thing his eye stares at, it just goes, that one. Like whatever glints at him, I'm having that one.
But what a nightmare, because he plunges his hand in and it's like a cat's cradle of keys, and it's just whatever comes free, really.
Yeah.
And so it comes free and it's like, okay, it's a Ferrari, right. Then he goes down to the garage and he's going around plipping, like in a multi-story, just plipping, hoping it'll open. And then he realises it's an Enzo or something. But it's blocked in by a load of other cars, so he's got to go back in the house, find the biscuit tin, rummage about. It's a fucking nightmare being the Sultan of Brunei, don't you think?
Yeah, I would say it's a massive pain in the arse.
I wonder whether,
I wouldn't
actually,
want
rather
to.
than the biscuit tin, he just keeps all the keys in a kitchen drawer. I mean, a really big kitchen drawer, because I imagine he's got quite a big kitchen.
Quite a heavy marble drawer, yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's an onyx and gold drawer. It's about the width of an actual car, and it's beautifully damped, soft closing.
Soft closed, so you can throw it closed and it always just slows down at the last minute.
When you open it up, it's got 17 phone chargers, most of which are for a phone he no longer owns. Some old biros, which don't work.
They're
Some
not
paper clips
biros,
for
though,
some
are
reason.
they? They'd be really expensive. I don't know, Mont Blanc or another expensive pen.
Yeah, just absolutely loads of Mont Blancs. Loads of really expensive sunglasses, one of which at least has got the arm snapped off. The instruction manual for the oven, which he can never find when he actually needs it to change the clocks when the clocks go forward. And then just
He doesn't know what the oven is.
reams of car
Never
keys.
been shown
No,
it.
he's like, what's this for? What? Oven?
That's what he does. He keeps his car keys in the oven like a proper drug dealer. Because he never uses the oven, and the chef's got a completely separate kitchen. So he just throws them all in the oven. He opens the oven door every day, and just cascades of just key fobs come out like a water feature. There we go. Oh, he's got one of those old school seaside amusements kind of drawers that go in and out, where you put two pencils in and they drop down onto the drawers. He's got those, but with his own keys in. So he has to win his own keys just to add a bit of spice.
One of those little grabber things.
Yeah. Okay, we've dwelt on that.
We've
too
dealt
long.
with that one, I think, pretty comprehensively. I hope that answers your question, James. Richard Tapp asks, what are your views on stanced cars? From cars that are very low through to ones with ridiculous camber that are totally undrivable. Any thoughts?
Yes. I think we didn't used to call it stanced, so it was just lowered or very lowered or low riding. I've had a number of those sorts of cars. My Mark 1 Granada was one, and I really like a lot of them if they're done right. I've been at the receiving end of badly done lowered cars, and it's just joyless. Hydraulics are a great idea. Air ride these days is even better, actually. What I don't, and I like a car that's sort of body dropped, and I like a proper custom job. What I don't like is when the negative camber is so negative, there's no contact patch on the road. And I got to say, I'm not down with the whole like 165 tyre stretched over a 12J rim.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I'm not
tyre
into
stretching is
it's just fucking
mad
lethal.
to me.
It's lethal.
Yeah.
There's no.
But do not some of these tyre stretching enthusiasts go to shows and then put the stretched tyres on, maybe? Because you can't drive on the road like that,
some
surely.
people do drive on the road like that. The problem is I get it, you want the look, but there's such a big gap between wanting the look and then crashing a car you've just spent 20 grand on because the tyre just doesn't fit on the bead properly.
Yeah.
And I'm not really. That's not cool. There's other ways of doing it. And
yeah.
so but yeah, I mean, I drove a dirty low car every day for about 2 years. It was so low, if I had people in the back and I overtook on the dual carriageway, it would flick the cat's eyes off the road.
What?
The diff would flick a cat's eye out of the road.
Jesus Christ. Was this the Jag?
No, that was the Granada before I fitted hydraulics to it. Oh, it was grossly low. My dad used to shake his head at me every time he saw it. I used to have to plot a map around every town because there were only certain ways I could get into a town. It was pathetic, but I was 19 and it was the coolest thing out there then in my head. So that's my answer. I think your answer is probably simpler.
No, I don't. I mean, each to their own. I do think, yes, if you and it's I don't see them around so much anymore. But the sort of like super lowered hot hatchbacks from the prime of Max Power days. And I would sort of think, now what you've done there is you have gone all out for the look at the expense of actually being able to use your car as a car. And it's great to sump on every single blob of gravel on every single street. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. It's like, it's not my car.
I don't get it when you're
while I was, like we were talking about last week, vigilante modification. I'd be a bit annoyed, but I don't. I don't know. It's fine. You do watch. I'll go outside now and find the air suspension's failed on my Range Rover, and it's sitting with its belly on the ground, and it'll be some kind of bizarre irony. Anyway,
I think if there's some incredible creativity out there, and there's a guy who's got a DeLorean on air ride, and the wheels I think are like custom versions of the originals but remade as like 18s at great expense, I'm sure, and it looks amazing. It just sits brilliantly, looks right, and I know it was engineered well, and I think that's cool. That's to be applauded. James Allington K, are there any plans to do any videos in the near future? It's
a few people have asked this.
Maybe is
maybe we are sort of allowed at some point, aren't we? I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a grey area, and it feels like, so technically we sort of could, because we could count it as work. But
yes, it is work.
Well,
Richard.
It is. We're sort of, we are kind of getting paid for it. We have a income from it in a way. So yes, it's work. It's what we do for a living, partly. But I don't know. I suppose we probably wear masks, and then it's all a bit weird. I suppose. I mean, we will definitely, won't we? And we were talking as well about maybe doing some stuff on the Late Break Show, and you're determined to give me a lift somewhere in your taxi, and that may conform to some kind of social distancing rules by dint of me sitting in the back. But
I'll wear white gloves as well.
Anyway, long answer short, yes, at some point we will definitely do some videos together again, but I think probably the podcast seems to be sort of working out, and to be brutally honest, it's much easier to do.
I think what we'll do is I could envisage us doing the equivalent of what the Grand Tour maybe does, is we'll do specials, which will be videos.
Yeah, it's like maybe sort of,
and they will be like 2 a year.
Yeah, well, because our most successful video by far is us wandering around that field of shite.
Scrap.
And so if we sort of did, every so often did like an hour long one of those, or even 2 half-hour specials from somewhere, then maybe that's sort of, I don't know. Well, I mean, if anyone has strong feelings about this, let us know.
Driving somewhere, and I'll treat you to a day out in a scrapyard with a sandwich.
Yeah. The other thing that people seem to ask for a lot on sort of YouTube comments and the Patreon messages is more of the... Is
it money from Nigerian princes?
Yeah. And I happily just give them your details, because I think it's probably, you've earned it. There's that one we did, Old Money Cars of London, where we just went around looking at interesting cars on the streets of a slightly posh bit of London, and I think people quite like that. So maybe we'll do one of those, but maybe do it on foot. I don't know, because then we can see more and stop and talk. And there's already actually another part of London that I've had cause to walk around recently that was a fertile hunting ground. So I think maybe
that's our first port of call. I'll bring the car down. I'll bring a convenient vehicle. I think I know what we could use that could easily duck into onto a curb and we could abandon it momentarily. I think I've got something. No, it's not a taxi's far too good for that. No, right. Has to be much more nimble than that. Probably electric.
The next question is actually John Lancaster Lennox is seconding the question about videos, but is also calling you out on referring to your taxi as a Tokyo taxi. Which, have you done that? I don't know. Did you? He says it's...
Well, I have sort of referred to it as a Tokyo taxi.
He says it is not a Tokyo taxi. It's from a different area of Japan. The minimum fare is too low. Tokyo minimum is 410 yen.
But what about when that taxi went out of use?
I was wondering that as well. Because John sounds like he's speaking from some kind of Tokyo experience. But
well, John, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you have vastly more experience than me. What I would say is maybe I've been told it's from the outer fringes of Tokyo, which could explain why it's in good condition, but also maybe the fare is lower. It's not been a taxi for about 11 years. So bear that in mind when talking about the currency. But I'd like to talk more about that, John. Thanks. I've got some lovely JDM stickers to put on it, actually. Subtle ones that are very confusing.
What, because they're in Japanese?
Well, because they're in Japanese, yeah. And some of the logos are great.
Zayn Ali.
Yes. Has there been a car launch which you wish you were invited to, but you didn't get an invite to? Also, does Richard's name Sniff come from his youthful partying days when he didn't mind a line or two of Colombia's finest?
No, it comes from my website, Sniff Petrol. And Sniff Petrol is called Sniff Petrol because I had some free web space and a lot of time on my hands, and I wanted to do a website. And I wanted to call it Autoholic. And at the time, there was already a website called that, or someone at least had bought the domain name, and that kind of crushed my plans. So I wrote down a load of other ideas, and I think I sent them to a mate of mine, in fact, who listens to this podcast. Hello, Has. And Sniff Petrol was the one that he went, oh, I like that one. So I went with that. Just seemed like an amusing name. That I was also the main motivating factor was no one else would have taken the URL. And by which you have to, even back then, that was like 2001. It was easier to get the address of your choosing if you melded together two words that no one else had thought to meld together, and Sniff Petrol was one of those. So that's where it comes from. Has there ever been a car launch you wish you were invited on? I don't know. I mean, I suppose, does he mean as in because they were sort of famously lavish and crazy?
Well, I heard that the MX-5 was quite interesting because you went to Hawaii, but got to drive the car for about 20 minutes because there were so many flights to get there. I heard that was supposed to be quite good.
I think there was some generation of Audi A8 where there was a very minimal amount of car driving because there was an awful lot of knobbing about in speedboats and things. But
I love that.
Yeah,
I'm in there.
Yeah,
I'm in there.
I can't. I mean, there's all these.
I quite like a crap car on a really interesting location, almost more than a supercar event.
Yeah,
that's almost what like the new Corsa, but you're in Corsica, and you're there, and you've got to be there for 5 days minimum.
Yes.
Those.
I tell you what, I did go on, which so it doesn't really count to answer this question. Is Evo said to me, do you want to go to the US to drive the Nissan GTR? Now, they'd already driven the GTR. This was going to be like a sort of follow-up feature based on the still current GTR being sold in the US for the first time. So Nissan were taking 3 or 4 journos from the UK to California to go and drive the GTR out there. So it's a fairly sort of inexplicable trip, and we got there.
It's lengthy, isn't it?
And then for some reason we couldn't have access to the cars for like 2 days, so we had a day to sort of just get over jet lag, and then we had a day where we were in Northern California. We'd flown to San Francisco and then across to Reno, and then I can't remember where we were, but they said, right, well, I'm afraid we still can't drive the cars today, so does anyone want to go skiing? And
what?
And so a couple of people on the trip.
This is a car launch.
A couple of the people.
A carless car launch.
A couple of the people on the trip who were keen skiers went, yeah, that sounds great. So we went up to this ski resort. The rest of us just sat in the lodge thing and drank coffee, and we were driven around in this massive SUV, an Armada, I think it is. A Nissan Armada is the sort of big SUV in the US.
Size of an Armada.
And this guy was driving us around in it. And I was so like, this feels weird and strange and wrong. And I was on the way back, because I just had a coffee. Well, some people had a bit of a drink, but I was like, no. I said to the guy while we were sitting having a coffee, can I drive us back from here to the hotel, which is sort of like, hour or so drive? And he went, yeah, don't see why not. But I'm supposed to be driving you now. And I was like, I know, but I really just want to drive a car. And I've never driven one of those before, so please may I drive it? He was like, yeah, okay, no problem. So I drove back to the hotel, and then we had dinner. And then the next day, finally, it was like, okay, this afternoon you're going to get a go in the GTRs. And it was like, this has been... It was a very strange trip. I got a feature out of it, so I suppose, that's what you're there for. But it seemed like it was a long way. And then I almost missed my flight home.
Oh my gosh, Richard.
For various complicated reasons.
Gosh.
I had to run through LAX airport, and I'd already worked out, and I was on my own. The rest of the party was staying on for another day, I think, to, I don't know, go swimming or something.
Because it was so stressful.
Yeah, they were all exhausted after the skiing. And
oh my gosh, these things are like a distant memory.
Things like this don't really happen anymore. This was
no, they don't.
Probably 10 years ago, something like that. So it's still sort of an era of lavishness. But another question,
right? Richard Major. Have you ever sold a car to someone who's clearly some sort of criminal? I once unloaded a Fiesta whose lambda sensor had somehow welded itself to the exhaust manifold but needed changing. The chaps that bought it to put on the back of an ill-sized flatbed paid me in 50 quid notes and gave me what was definitely a fake address for the V5 documents. Have I ever sold... I actually sold a vehicle during lockdown to someone that my wife was convinced were dodgy, and it was a bit stressful for a time. It was a motorbike, and they turned up to get a motorbike on with a beaver tail lorry, which it doesn't, like, motorbikes don't fit on them because there's nothing for them to attach to. It's actually the worst vehicle you could probably have picked.
Do you have to sort of lie them on their side and lash them down?
I had to empty all of my recycling to just find piles of boxes and bubble pack to lay the bike onto, then give them a rug. Then
you gave them a rug?
Yeah, I gave them an old rug. Don't worry, a cat had wazzed on it dozens of times. and it was one of my garage rugs that I used for, like, just, resting car doors on and stuff. I gave them that. They paid me, and the notes were absolutely pristine. And I took them, and it was too much for me to count. I think it was $8,000. And my wife, who was indoors, she tapped on the window and gave me that look. And I just craned my head in. She went, "You are not accepting that money, and you are going to the bank with them, and the bank will check whether it's hooky or not. You make an excuse and go to the bank with them now." I went, "What? How?" So I had to ask these guys who'd just given me $8,500 in brand new, perhaps suspicious notes, wearing oily tracky bottoms with a beaver tail lorry with a motorbike on the back. It's like, "Guys, listen, this is a bit too much for me to count. I don't normally accept cash. Could you just follow me into town?" And they did. They were like, "Yeah, no problem." To be fair to them, they were great.
See, as soon as they say, "Yeah, no problem," I kind of feel like that's okay. If they started getting a bit weird, unless, of course, they went, "Yeah, no problem," and then clonked you over the head with a spanner.
Yeah, maybe, but I made sure that I was in a far more agile car than their beaver tail Transit. So I thought, if they try and do me one at a junction, I'll just do a U-turn and give chase.
Smash you off the road into a lake.
Yes, I figured I'd already thought that one through, and it ended up being fine. But yes, I did think they were a bit hooky at first.
I've never sold a car to someone who was clearly some sort of criminal, Richard, but I'm intrigued by the rest of your question. When you say the chaps who bought your Fiesta put it on the back of an ill-sized flatbed, it's like, I want to know, ill-sized as in far too small or far too big?
Oh, it's funny you should say that. I have actually sold. I had an Oldsmobile Cutlass, and I sold it to a guy who wasn't dodgy, but I'd given him all the measurements of the car, and he just hadn't read my email. It seemed he'd won it on eBay, and he turned up with a Mercedes, quite a short Mercedes flatbed, and the car overhung the back of I'd say it overhung it by about 6 feet. But you know what? What was
It
even
hasn't got
funnier?
a 6-foot rear overhang, though, has it? With the back wheels just dangling off the back.
The back wheels were right at the back of the Beavertail, and then the whole rest of the car. Bear in mind, it was a 70s American car, so you can imagine the overhang. But what was even better than that was it clearly couldn't cope with the weight of this Olds. It loaded on, and he lashed it on, and we hadn't driven it anywhere. And I just looked at it and thought, the front springs and the front suspension is right on the rise, like hydrofoil, and it hasn't even driven anywhere yet. He tried to drive it. He tried to drive it up the lane back onto the road. That, you know, like at the back of the lorry, there's a light bar with a number plate underneath. All of that was just dragging on the ground, all of it. And I said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "Gloucester." That was 160 miles. I just thought he's going to arrive with no wiring for the back of the truck, and it's just going to have worn flat. It was incredible. I never heard from him again. Never. He was a nice bloke. I hope he didn't have a massive crash.
Dear. Okay. The next question, Martin Wasty or Wasty? I don't know. Sorry, Martin, I'm not sure. I'm going to say Wasty because it looks like it might be that, as in pasty. He just asks, Ineos Grenadier, why? Well, we've sort of covered this in a previous podcast because I had a bit of a
you had a rant.
A rant, indeed. Yeah, I just think it's a stupid waste of time. Yes, why? I mean, you've sort of answered your own question there, Martin. Why, indeed. After that, Richard Major's back to say a guy I went to school with went inside for armed robbery of a bank. What's the best crime you know of committed by an acquaintance? I don't know.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, stop hogging the questions, Richard. I mean,
I'll have to think. Let me think about that one. I'll
come back to that one. Fergus McIver asks, I once hard launched a car which wasn't mine and broke its drive shaft. Have you ever broken a car through aggressive driving?
Almost certainly. Have you ever broken a press car?
Specifically, yeah.
Okay, super casual.
No, I'm trying to think though. Have I ever broken a press car? I mean, I've had press cars break, but I'm trying to think of. I mean, the memorable one for me was, and it wasn't me, but I was there. We were doing something on old Top Gear about defensive driving. Like, Quentin of all people was learning to do J-turns and shit. And again, I mean, everything I say about this makes it sound absurd. It was Quentin, the least aggressive driver you could possibly meet, short of James May, in a Rover 75. And during the course of doing an aggressive J-turn, he ripped the front wheel off.
Actually off?
Yeah. Well, it became distinctly less attached than it should be for optimum driving pleasure.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
So that wasn't me, but it was something I saw that I was part of the filming of. And,
definitely broken cars on fifth gear. We have.
Yeah.
We've most definitely broken cars on fifth gear. Oh, I shattered an alloy wheel. You know those intentional potholes in test facilities, which are for curb strikes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, they'd left one uncovered, and I was doing about 60 in a Vauxhall Adam and went down one, and it left a part of the alloy in the hole. Ooh. And the car carried on.
Fuck.
Yeah, that was quite bad. Vauxhall were really pissed off with me because they thought I'd done it intentionally.
Yeah.
Which I hadn't. And I was pissed off with the test facility for leaving a massive hole open on a fairly fast part of the track.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
I have done some other aggressive drive. I've definitely burnt the clutch out on a Clio 182 Cup. But I think it was slightly bad when I got the car, he says.
Yeah, probably. They always are.
Yeah, they always are.
Yeah, someone else. Next question. Ben Draper says, Richard, are you still working with CHM / the Grand Tour now that they're only doing specials? Yeah, kind of. I wasn't for a bit because there wasn't much for me to do, so I didn't have anything to do with the boaty one, and I didn't really have anything to do with the Madagascar one. And then I have been a bit involved in the one that's coming next sometime later this year, which is was filmed in Scotland. And I was a bit involved.
I saw some spy pictures of that one.
Yeah, because they've got big old American cars.
That's right.
And yeah, we're just working on one at the moment, which I've been doing a little bit of stuff for, which I can't say too much about, but it's going to film very soon, and then I don't know, it'll be out. I've no idea. It's not up to us or Jeremy, Richard, and James or anyone. It's Amazon's call. So Yeah, so I kind of am, and I still see the three of them fairly often. I work with Jeremy on various other things, and with Richard. And I don't really work on James's other TV stuff, but I talk to James quite a lot because we just talk shite about cars. So the second part of Ben's question is for both of you. What's your proudest moment of TV which you've done? A car review / one of Top Gear Grand Tour specials, etc.
Bloody hell.
That's a tricky one, because, I don't know,
Proudest bit of TV, gosh. That is a really big question.
I mean, I always quite liked, from the later days of when I worked on Top Gear, that film about Peugeot, just because it was, I think we sort of got it right in that if you go back and watch it, there is actual information in there. Yeah. Everyone remembers the dicking around and the fake boardroom scene, which I was always quite pleased with, because it was just, it was basically a comedy sketch, but hopefully it didn't outstay its welcome. And then there's lots of larking about in that, but if you go back and watch it from the beginning, there is actual information in there. It does tell you a bit about the history of Peugeot, and then it sort of springboards that into daftness. And so, yeah, I was always quite fond of that. A lot of the stuff that I really liked, there was things I wasn't really that involved in. Like, one of my favourite Grand Tour things was when they took that self-assembly truck and drove across Mongolia. I just think that's a really nice film. And, that was pretty much unscripted. So I did have some, I kind of had some input into how the truck looked, because the original design, I didn't think it was very lovable looking the way it would have turned out, and then it was a bit odd. It was so I said, look,
needs a bit of charm to it.
because you make them, make it friendlier looking, give it
characterful
bigger lights, and then make them cut up boxes to make the bodywork, make it look sort of really kind of shambolic but sweet. And that was about the full extent of my input into that one, and I think it's a really nice film, one of the best things we've ever done. Oh, and that thing we did at the end of the Grand Tour, all about Fords, Cortinas and Sierras and Mondeos, that I thought turned out really nicely, had a nice heart to it, and I was quite across that. But that's it.
Well, that's all we've got time for. Yeah. Move on to the next question. I'm unfortunately, I have a strange memory in that I can't remember all the things I've done on fifth gear unless I look at a physical list in front of me, and it will go ping. Oh yeah, I did do that. I just can't remember most of it. I remember being really proud of the double-decker smart elk test, because it was just stupid. And I said from the start, this is not going to work. If you bolt one smart on another smart, the other smart won't cope with it. We'll just end up burning the engine out and it won't go anywhere. But contrary to belief, it was amazing. And they were both driving MOT'd cars. Looking back, it was a little cruel because they were both early cars, because they were cheap at the time. But I very much enjoyed that. But I did do some stuff that I was very, very proud of, definitely. And actually some of them weren't very glamorous. I think I was just... But the problem is I can't remember them until I really scout. I just can't... It's just stupid, isn't it? People ask me about all the fifth gear stuff I've done. I've done like 16 series. What was it? I've done 16 series of stuff. And it's so intense at the time, it just kind of it just... I don't know. I haven't got the hard drive to hold on to all the information. It's sad. I'll have to. I need a big receipt on the wall next to me, just going, this is what you did in Series 10. This is what you did in Series 11. This is what you did in Series 12.
Be thankful that it was being filmed, so it's like your brain has a hard copy of what you've been up to. Imagine if you were a chartered accountant, you'd have nothing. You'd
completely. I know it sounds dead ungrateful, but I don't mean it like that. I'm trying to think of a way of articulating it, but no, I was very proud. I'm pride of a lot of stuff.
Next question. Richard May just put another question. Richard, you're hogging the questions here.
No, he can't. He's had two already.
We're going to have
Come
to be
on,
a bit
James
stern
Webb's
about
the
this.
next man. Jamie Webb.
Yeah. Now,
Jamie Webb.
This is a big question. What would you suggest to a 60-plus-year-old mild helmsman, brackets my dad, as a stopgap? Bit of a backstory. He's looking at the Defender 110 and really likes the look of them, but he's older, but he can't bring himself to buy a new one at 65 to 80 grand, and there's no deals on X-Demos yet. So far, I've suggested everything from a 10 grand Range Rover Supercharged to a 10 grand 56 plate Audi S6 Avant, and a £30,000 13 plate Range Rover Sport Supercharged, to a 25 grand F10 M5, even a few rogue options like a 30 grand DB9 997 Gen 2 and a couple of Alpinas. The parameters has to be comfortable, reliable on long motorway journeys, as he regularly does Cornwall to Edinburgh for work. Bloody hell.
Wow, that's serious.
That's a drive. Christ.
Isn't going to draw the wrong kind of attention when he parks it outside the house in London. Large cargo capacity, and my mum will get in it / maybe drive it. Bonus points if it won't cost a fortune over the next 2 years and it won't depreciate massively. Bloody hell, man.
Yeah, it's quite a thing. I think, what about a Mercedes E63 estate?
Oh, stunner! Because you could debadge it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go stealth.
So it covers you. Large cargo capacity. Tick. Isn't going to draw the wrong attention. He parks outside the house in London. Yeah, debadge it. Tick. Comfortable / reliable on long motorway journeys. Tick.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they cost, but it seems like the budget is pretty fluid here because Jamie's gone from 10 to 30,000 pounds.
Well, put it like this: you could buy a very, very clean last of the naturally aspirated 6.2s, which I think as a C63 estate or an E63 estate, they're both brilliant. I would even go as far as to maybe removing the alloy wheels and putting some more dowdy wheels on it.
Oh, what, like Austrian winter tyres?
Austrian,
spec.
Wintersalto tyres, wheels. Yeah, and then but still put some choice rubber on, and and also on a long journey, those engines will do 30 to the gallon.
I was going to say, if
on
you get
cruise
a nice
control
cruise
at 70,
they do settle down a bit, don't they?
So if he did and also if he's an older bloke, he will be fine about getting up at 5 a.m. to leave Cornwall to go to Edinburgh. and
wouldn't you? Otherwise, how long is he there for?
Well, flipping ages. But I mean, a cruise control on a car like that at 70, actually, it will burble along effortlessly because it's geared well.
Yeah.
And I would rather have one of those to a fast Audi personally.
Yes, definitely. I've found one here. On Auto Trader, £27,990 for a 2014 E63 estate, and it's in black. It's got 54,000 miles on it.
That's not a lot.
It just looks great, and you could debadge that, and it's not going to cause too much fuss except for the noise it makes. Yeah, that looks really nice. Bloody hell.
Oh, I feel like now you should have bought that instead of your R supercharged.
Don't. I think Mr. Webb Senior could be quite happy in that. That would be my vote.
I realise this. He's put right at the end of his letter. I realise this could be a podcast in itself. To be honest, I think you two would start a side hustle to the side hustle if you suggest a winner.
Well, we just find people cars.
I'd love to. I'd like to be that person. I love buying cars that aren't mine. It's something I very much enjoy.
It's like helping people move house, much less stressful than moving house yourself. I'll
Isn't
happily
it?
lug boxes up and downstairs all day because it's not my shit.
Yeah, you're not attached to it. Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously, I'll drop a lot of it because it's not my shit, but that's not the point.
Oh gosh, this is a big question. The next one.
Graham Dallas, what's the most unusual / bizarre item you've found in a second-hand car you've bought?
We have talked about these things before, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we can never top our mutual friend who found those items under the rear seat of a Mercedes.
Of the 500 SEL that I told him to buy, because I found it and it was really cheap. And he said, Johnny, I bought that car at the weekend. I think the guy's a neo-Nazi. And also, he said, but when I got it home, the smell was unholy. I searched all weekend. I cleaned it, it still stank. I lifted the back seat. There was a carrier bag full to the top of dog's mess with a Dale Winton fridge magnet on the top. I know we've said this story before.
Never gets any less weird when I hear it.
It's same for me. It's never any stranger or any easier to think about. So that's
crikey. Well, that's it. So it's not a car that we've bought, but it's someone we both know bought this car, and you in fact told this person to buy that car.
I told him to buy it. It was 260 quid.
Was it?
It was 260 quid, and it was running, driving, not rotten. But he just wanted an engine donor because he put that engine out of it into a Mercedes 123. And he ended up breaking the car for spares. So it had a really good interior, it turns out. Nice.
Did it?
It smelly but well presented if you had no sense of smell.
Yeah, but if you extrapolate the mentality of someone who's put some dog poo and a Dale Winton fridge magnet under the back seat, what else have they been doing in that car?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't know.
Anyway, let's skip on
what's
to
the
the next
worst thing
question.
you've ever found in a car? Well, I did say in the States, when I was filming for a BBC America show good few years back, we bought a Pontiac Aztec for a project car that I was doing. And it actually was quite a cool car. It was a rare four-wheel drive one. But we found under the spare wheel well in the back, lots of used syringes, which made everyone creeped everyone out. Apparently it was bought from a rough part of town.
Wow.
That's what I was told.
Holy shit, that's just reminded me. A mate of mine who's a TV director was doing an advert, I think, where he just needed loads and loads of scrappers, basically, just sort of reasonable looking cars just to populate
a street,
but they were, expendable shite. And so they just got a load of cars in, and then someone happened to pop the boot of one of the cars, and there were bricks of cocaine in there.
What?
Like proper, like out of a movie kind of style, massive load of drugs. Actually, I don't think it was bricks. I think it was like bags with little bags inside. But either way, it looked like a movie prop, but it sort of clearly wasn't, because it was a scrap car that just arrived on a truck.
He'd bought it?
They'd bought it. They'd bought a load of them.
Oh, my
So immediately they went, right, this isn't right. Something is bad here. So they rang the police and went, you're not going to believe this, but we've bought this scrap car and it appears to have a very large quantity of drugs in the boots. The police came over.
Gosh.
Turns out it was an abandoned car. It had just been left on a street somewhere, and a local gang had been using it as a handy stash for their wares before they went and sold it.
Bloody hell.
And then the car had got yanked away by the council or whatever and sent to the scrapper. And
yeah, but with 200 grand's worth of...
Well, yeah, it was a
naughtiness in a boot.
Shed ton. I think it was coke.
Bloody hell.
In a boot. And they just accidentally got... But yeah, what a bizarre thing to happen. Anyway.
I've got this question from Dave Smith is probably one... I mean... We're running out of time. There's so many. We'll have to do this as a two-parter.
Yeah.
Dave Smith, what do you think you'll both be doing in 10 years' time? This is like an interview question.
Yeah.
I'm 40. And what am I actually? 41, 42.
Just going back to that thing you said about having no memory of anything.
Yeah, listen, guys, I'm 40 something years old.
I'm definitely in my 40s now.
Well, I'm 42, and I'm thinking, and I've started YouTube a little later than what most professional YouTubers have done. I have no idea if I'll do much more on the television, because these things sort of come and go. They're a bit weather vainy TV gigs. I don't know. It would be great to be able to still do something on YouTube or build something up that I'm still a part of, but maybe I'm not entirely at the forefront of. But also it would be great if you and I got paid to drive around in cars and point out scrap yards and laugh at people.
Well,
I just don't know
10
if that's
years
a job.
is enough for us to get Smith and Sniff the movie off the ground, I reckon.
Oh,
so,
come on. Netflix, come on. Something like that. I don't, it's such a difficult question. I mean, what I hope is that in all seriousness, I hope that my opinion will be still valid, and that I might still be able to make people laugh. People will still care, and the state of the car world will have obviously changed, and I hope I will have evolved with it. I've got a fairly broad appreciation of cars, but that's a big old question, that. And I think in the last year or so, when people have had a lot of time to reflect and try and work out where they're going in life, yeah, it's a big one. I mean, I can't see us stopping doing the Smith and Sniff podcast, Richard.
Not for any time soon. I mean, I think people still seem to like it. I mean, we are just over a year of doing it, aren't we? Which is not that long. I had a little bit of a panicky moment the other day because I was talking to my wife. We were having a slightly philosophical conversation about, where do we want to see ourselves in future? And I remembered a thing that I'd heard a while ago about being in your 40s, and it was described as your 40s are when you're young enough to be hungry but old enough to be wise. And that really stuck with me. And then I had a bit of a panic because I'm about to turn 46, so I'm over halfway through my 40s, and I feel like I might have pissed away a bit of it, not really doing much. So I really do need to crack on, because you do need to do it before you lose your faculties, or your knees give way. And your hunger, yeah, and that's the thing. It's no one wants to look back in regret. So I don't know, but 10 years is a long time, isn't it? A lot can change in 10 years. Who knows? Fuck knows. I think I agree with you. I hope I can still find a few people who might be interested in the kind of shit that I say or write, which is sort of how I make a living. Yeah. And it would be nice to do some new things within that. But I don't know, as long as you've got your health, you've got everything, as that's someone once said to me. But,
and a few cars lying around.
Yeah. Well, thank you for a thought-provoking and philosophical question, Dave.
Dave.
We are going to have to wrap this up in a minute. I'll do this quick one. Alex Montgomery is just being nice, saying top work, chaps, so thank you, Alex. Gur O'Connor, what was the best unbroadcastable some say Stig joke? I don't remember any unbroadcastable ones. There was one that had a go at Jade Goody, and then she died, and I had this horrible pang. Now, the reason we were having a go at it was because it was when she'd been on Celebrity Big Brother, and she'd been a bit racist. And
I can't remember that.
Yeah, and there was a bit of an outcry, and it was a bit, I just thought, we'll join in the fray and have a pop at her, because I thought, she came across as a bit nasty. But, actually, in retrospect, just because someone's been nasty doesn't mean you should be nasty back. Anyway, you live and learn. But the thing was, when she died, I was suddenly like, oh, God, every episode of Top Gear seems to live on in perpetuity on Dave, just on a loop. And that's going to look awful if it pops up in the aftermath of her dying. And then I discovered, on trying to find out who I should speak to make sure that episode wasn't transmitted anywhere, that actually it's on a do not transmit list, because it was the same episode as the footage of Richard Hammond's accident, which is not available to be constantly looped on Dave.
Oh, isn't it?
No, it has a sort of not without special permission flag on it in the BBC archive. So thankfully that rather insensitive moment was kept from happening. So yeah, that's about the most unbroadcastable I can remember, but it was actually broadcast at time.
This is the one we can wrap it up with. It's a little bit lighter. Manx Mountain Ninjas. Sure, that's not his real name or her real name. What car makes you mutter the word bell end straight away upon sight?
The current Range Rover Sport SVR, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it does
usually
have a bit
makes me assume Belendery, and it's guilty until proven innocent, because you see them being driven in urban areas in such a twattish way.
You do.
I think it's partly because they're noisy. But,
well, it's just it's just horrible brashness, isn't it?
I'm not one to have a pop at someone driving a supercharged Range Rover product, obviously, but it's the way in which they're driven that seems to be perennially twatty. And also Mercedes G63s.
What, just general Belendery?
Again, I'm not in a position to have a go at supercharged or more turbocharged SUVs, but they seem to attract a certain sort of standard of driving that is at the fluty end of things.
On a Friday night, usually I would go and get fish and chips for my family from the local fish and chip shop. And when I'm standing out there waiting for my order to be cooked, there's a little side street, and there's a lot of people that seem to be ringing it out in second gear going up there. It's a narrow street with a path either side. And the ones that make me mutter bell end regularly, and in fact I probably will be muttering bell end tonight, there's two cars, they're both diesel, they've both got induction kits, and the blow-off valve, which sounds like a pigeon. You know the one I mean?
Yeah.
They've got that. One of them's a BMW E46 four-door, which is just ghetto modified, and the other one's a Golf Mark IV with R32 body kit on it, but clearly a diesel.
I was going to guess it's some kind of VAG TDI Pump
yeah, but
Deuce era.
just shitly mapped black smoke. But like, but I think
Shitly mapped.
Well, do you know what I mean? Your mate who's smoking weed and playing Fortnite is mapping your car with the other hand, going, "Oh, that'll be all right. It'll puff smoke and it will inhale really hard. Whatever. I don't even understand what I'm doing. Anyway, go and get me some munchies." I think it's that. And but more than anything, it's the doing more than 30 in a 30 whilst properly leaning on a low gear. I find that instantly creates the Bell M word for me.
Yeah, it's true.
And on that note, I'm going to say thanks to everybody who sent in questions. We will get through all of them eventually.
Yes, we are going to do a bonus show later this week where we'll answer some more of these questions, probably out on Friday if you're listening to this before then. If you're not, you'll already know about it. And I'm tying myself in knots here. So anyway, thank you ever so much for listening, and we will see you for a bonus answering questions show at the end of this week. Until then, goodbye.
Bye. The filth and the weirdness.